Shalom, shalom, peace and blessings. Now let's get straight into it. This is going to be part 3 of the Virgin Mary agenda. And this may be quite long because I have a ton of information to go through. So, it may take a while to get through this, but, now moving forward, I do want to take my time and go through this information thoroughly. So that way, whatever topic it is, we could try to get the best understanding, at least from my view and my perspective of, what's actually going on. But back to this particular topic, the Virgin Mary agenda. One of the biggest reasons why, to me at least, why people struggle understanding the Bible is because they don't see it as a historical book. And once you don't see it as a historical book, it will have a severe impact on your understanding, man. And you always read it through a modern lens, meaning you'll look at the English words that you read in the Bible and directly translate it over to the same definitions as the scribes of the times that the scriptures were written, and think it's the same understanding and the same meaning as of today. Something like the word virgin. A lot of people don't realize that word has more than one meaning, just like many words in the English language does. So it's just by translation. But, also back to the point, with something like the virgin birth, you'll fail to understand the history behind it if you don't look at it from a historical lens. All right. But today I'm going to show you some history behind the so-called virgin birth, and to show you the idea that Mary was a virgin doesn't come from the understanding of what's actually in the scriptures. It comes from the different various pagan goddesses in antiquity. There's nothing new under the sun. So first, let's go with Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 12. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So, spiritual wickedness in high places is where you get different doctrines from, is where you get different deceptions from. Okay. And that's why so many people believe things that are in the scriptures that are really not. And, you have to come to this understanding that everything that you see, everything that you hear, just because a billion people on planet Earth believe it to be true, doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. But let's go ahead and jump into the history now. All right. One of the first points I want to prove is that the virgin birth is a new doctrine. All right. This is not something that has always been believed. Let's take a look here. I got this Wikipedia page. It says the denial of the virgin birth of quote unquote Jesus. All right. And it says the denial of virgin birth of Jesus is found among various groups and individuals throughout the history of Christianity. These group of individuals often took an approach to Christology. What is Christology, man? The Savior Christ, I guess. Which understands Jesus to be human, the literal son of human parents. That's what it is. All right. Not this part per se. I mean, I guess, he was human, but it's not to diminish his work here. But we're going to keep going. The point I want to get to here, actually, let's go down here. It says early Christianity. Now, early Christianity is essentially what they call early Christianity, because really there's no such thing as early Christianity, but it's just the earliest followers of Yahushua or of Christ, right? But none of the earlier followers of Yahushua or Christ believed in the virgin birth. So why is it that the further you go in history is the more likely you'll see the virgin birth rather than the people that actually lived and saw Yahushua, the people that, saw him from a baby, from the time he was born, rather, why don't they believe in the virgin birth if they were there to see it? That doesn't really make sense. It would be the other way around. More than likely, if that was the case, that Yahushua was born of a virgin, the people that were there to see it, they're more likely to have been a testament of that or had a testimony of that. But you don't see that. All right. So let's see. It says the group most closely associated with denial of the virgin birth were the Ebionites. However, Jerome does not say that all Ebionites denied the virgin birth, but only contrasts their view with the acceptance of the doctrine of the related on the part of a related group, the Nazarenes. Well, so we see here that the Ebionites, quote unquote, denied the virgin birth. And it says the view was rejected by the ecumenical councils, especially in the first Council of Nicaea, which was convened to deal directly with the nature of Christ's divinity. So in that first Council of Nicaea, you see a lot of the different doctrines that are prevalent today. They began there in the first Council of Nicaea. Okay. Now, why did I pull this up? So we're going to talk about the Ebionites now. I'm going to show you why I pulled this up. All right. It says Ebionites. Ebionites, the different translations in different languages, meaning the poor ones. Now let's go down to where we talk about the virgin birth. The term refers to a Jewish Christian sect, Jewish Christian, which viewed poverty as a blessing that existed during the early centuries of the Common Era. Now, look, when I pull things like this up, I'm not saying that every single person that lived around this time had the 100% correct doctrine because they lived closer to the time that Yahushua was alive. We're just staying on one topic here. Okay. So it says the majority of the Ebionites rejected as heresies the Orthodox Christian beliefs in Jesus' divinity, virgin birth, and substitutionary atonement. So why did they reject the virgin birth? Because again, the Ebionites were a sect that was around, in quote unquote early Christianity. All right, let's see who else rejected the quote unquote virgin birth. This is Acts chapter 24 and 5. It says, "For we have found this man a pestilent fellow and a mover of sedition among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes." And this is referring to Paul. All right. It was this council that was referring to Paul here, calling him a ringleader of the Nazarenes. Who were the Nazarenes? Pretty much the quote unquote early Christians. Christians not related to the word Christianity or Christian today, not from a modern sense, but from a biblical sense, just meaning the early followers of Yahushua. And the reason you have that distinction is because a lot of the Israelites at this time in the early first century, they did not believe in Yahushua. Okay. The Pharisees, Sadducees, so on and so forth. They didn't believe in Yahushua at all. So that's why you have, different designations for those that did believe in Yahushua. That's all that means. Israelites, so Nazarenes would be Israelites that believed in Yahushua. See, it says a name given to Christians by the Jews. And that's why it says by Jews, because these were the only followers of Yahushua in the first century, including, see, it's Acts chapter 24, including after Acts chapter 10 and 11, so on and so forth, after Acts chapter 15. You never had a time where the other nations, the quote unquote Gentiles, meaning any nation that is not of the stock of Israel, all right, any nation that's not of the people of the book, meaning the Israelites, God's chosen, they were never called Christians in quote unquote the quote unquote first century. They were never called Christians. Okay, they were never followers of Christ. It was always only referring to one people. All right. The scriptures will always only refer to one people. The word church means ecclesiastia of following, a gathering, a gathering of Israelites. Now let's look at this Nazarene sect here, which again were an early Jewish Christian sect in first century Judaism. There's no such thing as first century Judaism. Judaism is a man-made religion. It's not in the scriptures. Okay, the first use of the term found in Acts of the Apostles in the New Testament, where Paul the Apostle was accused of being a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. Okay, by Antonius Felix at Caesarea Maritima by Tertullus. But let's get to the point here. What was that? Oh, okay. All right, let's see. Now let's go to the Nazarenes, 4th century here on this Wikipedia page. And it says the Nazarenes were similar to the Ebionites in that they considered themselves Jews, maintained an adherence to the law of Moses. But don't they tell you that the law is done away with? And after Paul came on scene, that's what he was preaching. But Paul was accused of being a quote unquote Nazarene. Okay? They did maintain the adherence to the law of Moses, meaning the children of Israel today are supposed to maintain the adherence of the law of Moses. All right. Anyways, they rejected all the canonical gospels and used only Aramaic gospel of the Nazarenes. So keep in mind, this is in the 4th century. Unlike the Ebionites, they accepted the virgin birth. So is this off? Was I wrong here? I did say that all of the different sects in the 1st century did not accept the virgin birth, but they're saying right here that the quote unquote Nazarenes did. But let's just keep reading. It says they considered Yahushua or Jesus as a prophet. It must be noted that the Nazarenes, as described by Epiphanius in the late 4th century AD, believing in the virgin birth, were not the same as the 1st century Nazarenes, who were followers of Paul, who never taught or believed in a virgin birth, but believed that the Messiah was born of the flesh from the seed of David. So look, man, that there's evidence right there. Just showing you that the 1st century Nazarenes, meaning the people, the followers of Christ from the 1st century, which Yahushua lived in the 1st century, right? Okay. That those people never taught or believed in a virgin birth, but believed that a Messiah was born of the flesh from the seed of David. That's why Paul in Romans chapter 1, verse 3 said the exact same thing. Okay. According to the flesh. It's very simple, man. You just have to deal with the scriptures as history and accept, what it is. Because it is what it is, man. All right. Look, 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 3. For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lusts shall they heap to themselves teachers having itching ears. And they shall turn away their ears from the truth and shall be turned into fables. Look, this Mary was a virgin doctrine is a fable, okay, for those that have itching ears. All right, but we about to get more on that. All right, but we in this time now where people, they do not endure sound doctrine. And, suckers try to tell me that, I'm the one that's not enduring to sound doctrine here, but like I've said before, the so-called virgin birth, at least for those that believe in, is only in 2 places in the scriptures. So it's not like, you got all these accounts in scriptures you can pull to support your doctrine. Like you can't. So how you the one with sound doctrine with 2 scriptures to pull, man? It's kind of sad. But anyways, let's look at some supporters of the virgin birth. It says, did the virgin conception first appear late in history? It says, some critics have argued the virgin conception of Jesus is a late mythological addition attributed to Christian believers many centuries after the fact. Well, that's true. You know, I wouldn't ascribe to 100% of what this person said, but pretty much the last part of it, that's true. These skeptics presume, of course, the Gospels of Matthew and Luke were written far later than the first century. No, that's not my standpoint. Not really that. Well, eyewitnesses would have been available to refute the additional mythology. The history of the early church reveals, however, that the virgin conception was recognized and accepted very early in history. The first opponents of Christianity recognized that Mary gave birth to Jesus without an identified earthly father. Without an identified earthly father, who was Joseph? Who was Joseph then? He's not an identified earthly father? What? And claimed that Jesus was, therefore, illegitimate. Celsus, a Greek philosopher and opponent of Christianity, echoed this charge in the 2nd century in his work entitled The True Discourse. It's clear that the issue of Jesus' parentage was an early concern, and the first believers were committed to the idea of the quote-unquote virgin conception. Now it says, the early church fathers believed it. And we going over this so we can see, because I want to touch both sides. I don't want to just show, my standpoint on it, and not just me, of course, many other brothers and sisters that understand that Christ was not born of a virgin. So when I say mine, I'm just talking about me in particular here, but I wanted to go on both sides here. So it says the early church fathers believed it. The early leaders of the church taught that Jesus was born of a virgin, and they wrote about this in their letters of those they led. They agreed with the Gospel of Matthew and interpreted Isaiah's prophecies as predictions of the virgin conception. Ignatius, it says 35 to 117 AD, the third bishop and patriarch of Antioch, he's quoted by saying he was truly born of a virgin from the letter of the Cyrenians written around 103 AD. Now, here's the issue, because a lot of these testimonies here kind of say the same thing. Now, this is interesting, this Justin Martyr dialogue here. It says, but you Jews and your teachers venture to claim that in the prophecy of Isaiah, it is not said, behold, the virgin will conceive, but behold, the young woman will conceive and bear a son. Furthermore, you explain the prophecy as if it referred to Hezekiah, who was your king. Therefore, I will endeavor to soon discuss this point in opposition to you. From his dialogue with Trypho, written around 160 AD. Now, see, what this guy is trying to prove is that the virgin birth is sound doctrine, and then you had different Christian apologists and different quote-unquote bishops and things like that agree with it. But really what he's showing here, too, is that if this dialogue really did happen, because it's actually debatable whether this dialogue with Trypho by Justin Martyr was actually real dialogue. But anyway, if you don't know what I'm referring to, you can just kind of look it up. But it says, you Jews and your teachers venture to claim that in the prophecy of Isaiah. So really what he's showing here is that there were plenty of Jews that did not believe in virgin birth. Okay. But back to this point here, he was truly born of a virgin. The word virgin does not only mean a woman that does not have sexual intercourse. So I agree with this statement. It doesn't say anything about Mary not having sexual intercourse. If you understand, the word virgin can also mean a woman, a young woman, or a woman in general of a marriageable age. I mean, These other ones saying the same thing, to be born of a virgin. Divinity the virgin bore. Okay. I mean, some of them do say, um, I think some of them did say something about not having sex, but the point is, though, you can't take this translation and be like, look, see, Mary didn't have sex. It just says virgin. It doesn't say anything about her not having sex with Joseph. All right. Now, let's get Deuteronomy chapter 32 and 7. It says, remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will show thee. Thy elders, and they will tell thee. You got to consider the years of many generations, man. Ask thy father, and remember the days of old to get the answer, man. We can't just go by this new stuff that's out here, man. That's why the resources are scant. If this was really the case, you think you would have to go to things written in 103 AD, 160 AD, 180 AD? Where's the testimonies from those that actually lived around that time, that wrote, around that time? And when I say around that time, meaning, between 1 and 50 or so AD, where are those testimonies at? Why does it take, after 70 years after Yahushua was no longer here? When I say no longer here, of course, in the earth, why does it take testimonies from that to be able to, get someone that believes in his virgin birth? All right. Now, let's kind of dive deeper into it. Okay, so it says virgin birth of Jesus. The virgin birth of Jesus is the Christian doctrine that Jesus was conceived by his mother, Mary, through the power of the Holy Spirit and without sexual intercourse. Okay. The narrative appears only in Matthew 1, 18 through 25, and Luke 1, chapter 26, verse 38. And the modern scholarly consensus is that it rests on very slender historical foundations. I agree with that. It does rest on very slender historical foundations. It definitely does. The ancient world had no understanding of the male semen and female ovum were both needed to form a fetus. I don't know about that. Yeah, again, it just says here, the modern scholar consensus is that the doctrine of the virgin birth rests on very slender historical foundations, man. Because it does. Both Matthew and Luke are late and anonymous compositions dating from the period AD 80 to 100. The earliest Christian writings, the Pauline epistles, that just say anything on the Pauline epistles. I mean, I get it, but anyways, do not contain any mention of a virgin birth and assume Jesus' full humanity, saying that he was born of a woman like any other human being and born under the law like any Jew. Why is that, man? That's something to consider. It is. You guys kind of ignore that, but it's really something to consider. Now let's keep going. Okay, now we're over to the Veneration of Mary in the Catholic Church. Why are we in the Veneration of Mary in the Catholic Church? Well, because we need to understand why the Catholic Church goes so hard about Mary. You got the Hail Mary and, like it just says here plainly, the Veneration of Mary. Why is she venerated? Basically meaning worship. They have their own feast days for Mary. Let's see. Yeah, like different feast days. The Feast of the Immaculate Conception, Mary, the Mother of God, the Assumption of Blessed Mary, the Lady of Guadalupe, and, they have all these different feast days and things like that. Why is that? Why do they go so hard about the Virgin Mary when it's not mentioned in scriptures to do so? See, the average person is just going to completely look over this. You're going to just think this is, it's just the Catholic. That's just Catholic folk. That has nothing to do with Christianity. That's just the way they look at the Bible. That's just what they took from it. And none of those things are the case. Okay, for the average person, yeah, that's the way you're supposed to look at it. But why this was installed, why this was implemented within the so-called Catholic Church, has a much more sinister reason behind it. It's not one of these things that's just simple, just a passerby. Oh, it's just what they think. A lot of people tend to think like that because since, they don't know the answer and they just want to kind of dumb things down just because they don't know. But anyways, let's see what we can dig on the Catholic Church here in the Veneration of the Catholic Church. It says, the Veneration of Mary in the Catholic Church encompasses various devotions, which include prayer, pious acts, visual arts, poetry, and music devoted to her. Why? Popes have encouraged it while also taking steps to reform some manifestations of it. Yeah, the popes, they all in on it, man. They all in on it. So what I want you guys to all understand, first of all, this is not actually an accurate depiction of Mary from the scriptures. Mary was a so-called black woman, as was her son, Yahushua Hamashiach. But either way, look at all these titles here. The Mother of God, all right, Queen of Heaven, Mother of the Church, okay, Mediatrix of all graces, and then Our Lady. What I want you to understand is that all of these titles that's given to the Virgin Mary all come from the various pagan mother goddesses in antiquity. That's where they got these titles from. It's just not out of nowhere. It's not because they read the scriptures. They read the Bible and was like, oh, she's supposed to be labeled as the Mother of God. Oh, she's really the Queen of Heaven. She's really Our Lady. No. She's really the Mother of the Church. No. All right, that ain't how that happens. All right. There's a specific reason for it. There's a specific reason that people think that Mary is a virgin in the first place. It comes from history. It comes from pagan idolatry. All right, but let's keep going. Okay. Now let's go to the development of Marian doctrines. It says, the theological development of devotion to Mary begins with Justin Martyr. We saw him earlier, who articulated Mary's role in salvation history as the second Eve. We're going to talk about that much later on, but that's very important to understand why Justin Martyr said that. This is followed up by Irenaeus, who Justin Thurston calls the first theologian of the Virgin Mother. Now let's get to the second paragraph here. It says the Catholic Church's magisterium has identified 4 teachings about Mary as dogmas of faith. These include belief in her virginal conception of Jesus, taught by the First Council of Nicaea in 325, the First Council of Nicaea. The Council of Ephesus in 431 applied to her the description Mother of God, or Theotokos. Okay, the perpetual virginity of Mary was taught by the Ecumenical Second Council of Constantinople in 553, which described her as ever virgin. Okay, all of these things, the perpetual virginity, ever virgin, you're going to see that these things have been around for thousands of years. Okay, the virgin concept of a virgin, quote unquote, mother, all right, a virgin lady, these things have been around for thousands of years. Okay, and there's a reason that Mary were given these same attributes. Okay, it's not because it's actually in the Bible, it's because it's a Romanized, paganized version of what's in the Bible, so that you will worship these different deities without you realizing it. If that sounds funny, well, just stick around. I'm going to get to it. Okay. Let's start right here. These include in her first virginal conception of Jesus taught by the first Council of Nicaea. So let's go into this Council of Nicaea. So the Council of Nicaea, ancient Greek, okay, was a council of Christian bishops convened in the Bithynian city of Nicaea, which is now Iznik, Turkey, by the Roman Emperor Constantine I in 325 AD. So I've done a lesson on the origins of Christianity, all right, and I went a little bit more into the Council of Nicaea. But for right now, let's kind of go through here and establish a few things. Okay, it says this ecumenical council was the first effort to obtain consensus in the church through an assembly representing all Christendom. So you have to understand that this is where modern Christianity comes from, for the most part. Of course, there were many tweaks, but the Roman Catholic Church was developed around this time, at least the first iterations of it. All right. What as Christianity today kind of started here. Remember, the word Catholic means universal or general, right? The word Catholic comes from the Greek phrase kathalu, on the whole, according to the whole, in general. Okay. The combination of the Greek word kata, or whole. So Catholic means universal, right? The word Catholic literally means universal, as in the universal church. It originally was applied to all Christians because we all know it was applied because, Constantine, he wanted to establish a doctrine that everybody could adhere to for his own political and wicked purposes. It had nothing to do with everybody being the same. If you understand how things work, he's just trying to get everybody under the same pot. It has nothing to do with what was actually accurate, what was right. All right, that's why none of this is found in the scriptures. The early quote unquote Christians were all Israelites. But for you to be able to spread that doctrine to all nations, you had to have, a universal doctrine, a universal belief. Okay, a general consensus. All right, universal. It says Hosius of Corduba may have presided over its deliberations. Its main accomplishments were settled of the Christological issue of the divine nature of God the Son and its relationship to God the Father. God the Son. The construction of the first part of the Nicene Creed, mandating uniform observance of the date of Easter. And promulgation of the early canon law. Do you understand what's going on here? All right. You have this Council of Nicaea, all right, where everybody's coming together and establishing a set doctrine for all the inhabitants of Rome. Again, that's not based on the scriptures. They didn't say, okay, let's go into the scriptures, let's go into the law and make sure everybody is adhering to the law, because this Roman Emperor Constantine I was a pagan. Okay, that's why he implemented the uniform, there's another word letting you know, the date of Easter. Easter is not in the scriptures, man. You get it? We're actually going to get there later. So let's look at this. We're about to go back to the Council of Nicaea. Just want to get this really quickly. Catholic Mariology. You see that you have something called Mariology. Why? This is not in the scriptures, man. This is all off. But look, it says the four Marian dogmas of Mother of God. The four Marian dogmas of Mother of God, Immaculate Conception, Perpetual Virginity, and Assumption form the basis of Mariology. These are all based on pagan deities, okay? All right? Do you understand that? It's very simple. Very, very simple. Now let's go to the Council of Nicaea here. All right. So it says here at the top, the Council of Nicaea, pagan emperor Constantine used Christianity to unify church and state. The Council of Nicaea, also known as the First Council of Nicaea, was the first ecumenical council of the Christian church. This council, which was convened in 325 AD, was assembled by Roman Emperor Constantine. About 300 bishops from across the Roman Empire met in Nicaea to discuss theological issues, particularly the teachings of Arianism. One of the most important outcomes of the Council of Nicaea was the formulation of the Nicene Creed, which is still used as a profession of faith by many of the Christian denominations. This was not based in the scriptures. This was based on the Roman Emperor Constantine, which is a so-called black man. Roman does not equal so-called white. It doesn't even equal so-called black. This is just a logical area where people have inhabited and took over many times, and many different people have been there. Okay, but anyways, we're still used as a profession of faith by many of the Christian denominations. Okay, this is where you get your Christianity from today, for the most part. Again, there's been adjustments since then, but it was all just paganism blended in with the scriptures, so you would still, adhere to some pagan ideology without you realizing it. There's a reason that most Christians, not all, but most of the denominations in Christianity, they go to church on Sunday instead of keep the Sabbath. There's a reason that, what else, man? There's a reason that you don't believe in a dietary law. There's a reason that, you believe that all nations are accepted. It comes from here. There's a reason that you keep Easter instead of the Passover. All right. None of these things are actually in the Bible. Okay. Just like the virgin birth. And this is why we're going into this. So you can understand that this is one of the things that was discussed during the Council of Nicaea, as we read earlier. Okay. Now, we can kind of go into this some more, but I think I want to jump straight into more about Constantine himself. Okay, yeah, let's do that. So it says, was the Emperor Constantine a true Christian, or was he a secret pagan? If you had to ask that question, he was a secret pagan. Okay. Constantine the Great is known in history as the first Roman emperor to convert to Christianity. However, legends and archaeological evidence suggest a different story. It seems that Constantine had a secret about his faith, which was hidden for centuries. Okay, it says Constantine became emperor in 306 AD and ruled for 31 years. According to tradition, just before the Battle of Milvian Bridge, Rome, in 312, he experienced a vision of a flaming cross with the inscription, "In his sign conquer." So a cross is not a sign of Christ. All right. That's of the pagan god Tammuz. All right. That's all that is. So, Constantine is claiming that he started Christianity based off a flaming cross, and in his sign conquer, based on what he said, that has nothing to do with the Most High. The Most High is not the one that sent him that. Okay. Tammuz did. All right. As the legends say, he understood it was a sign from the Christian God. Who is the Christian God? Asking him to convert. Constantine believed that he would be rewarded with unusual power, the support of a deity, and the greatest kingdom of the world if he followed through the vision. Well, all right. Now here's the point. Okay, now here's the point. A Christian who worshiped the sun. Constantine grew up in the court of the emperor Constantine Calorus, which is a Neoplatonist and a devotee of the unconquered sun. Okay, of the unconquerable sun. All right, his mother, Empress Helena, was a Christian who traveled through the Middle East searching for key sites connected to Jesus. According to ancient texts, she identified important places mentioned in the Bible, but young Constantine didn't appear to follow his mother's religious interests. He worshiped the sun or was devoted to Mithraism. So that's exactly why you have church on Sunday now, because Constantine was a sun worshiper. These are not accurate depictions of Constantine, his mother, by the way. Okay, after his official conversion to Christianity in 312, Constantine built his triumphal arch in Rome. It is interesting that it wasn't dedicated to the symbols of Christianity, but to the unconquered sun, or Sol Invictus. During his reign, he changed many aspects connected to pagan cults, but that doesn't mean that he stopped the cultivation of old traditions. Okay? So, what am I getting at here? The point is that Constantine mixed in the Bible with different pagan ideologies, like Easter. Easter is of the worship of the mother goddess. That's very clear. That's not debatable at all once you look at the etymology of the word or the meaning of the word Easter in the first place. Okay, it's very, very simple. All right. So Constantine legislated that the celebration of the Day of the Sun should be a state holiday, a day off for everyone. Why did he do that? It wasn't based off of none. It was based off the worship of the sun. Okay. So he had this huge statue, also the column of Constantine, which was, that's a phallic symbol. All right. So, he's a sun god worshiper. All right. He did not implement quote unquote Christianity because he believed in the scriptures, because he believed in the Bible. He didn't implement Easter because that was told, it was told that we're supposed to keep Easter. He did it because he was a believer in a different pagan ideologies. Very, very simple, man. So let's go here to the two Babylons. Let's see what we got here on page 93. It says Easter. Then look at Easter. What means the term itself? It is not a Christian name. It bears its Chaldean origin on its very forehead. Exactly. It says Easter is nothing else than Astarte, one of the titles of Beltis, the Queen of Heaven, whose name, as pronounced by the people of Nineveh, was evidently identical with that now in common use in this country. That name, as found by Layard on the Assyrian monuments, is Ishtar. That's in the scriptures, man. That's where Easter comes from. All right, let's look and see what King Solomon, who he worshipped after he was going off, with his 1,000 wives. Okay. First Kings chapter 11 and verse 1, it says, But King Solomon loved many strange women, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonians, and Hittites. Of the nations concerning which the Lord said unto the children of Israel in Deuteronomy chapter 7, Ye shall not go into them, neither shall they come in unto you, for surely they will turn away your heart after their gods. Solomon clave unto these in love. Okay. And he had 700 wives. Okay, let's get to a point here. Verse 5. For Solomon went after Ashtaroth, the goddess of the Zidonians. And after Milcom, the abomination of the Ammonites. So anytime you see goddess, of course, it's referring to a female deity, which that's what Asheroth was. But Ashtaroth is just Astarte or Easter or Isis or Ishtar. It's the same thing. Like if you look at, there's some translations that just say Astarte. Solomon worshiped the Sidonian goddess Astarte. Okay? That's why you put a star on the top of a Christmas tree. That's where you get an Eastern star from. Okay? Star has, long been a symbol of the different pagan goddesses. All right? So, that's what Easter comes from. Now, again, remember, Constantine is the one that implemented this. So you got to keep that in mind, man. Let's get some more on Easter. And you may be thinking, let me just kind of connect this back again. You may be thinking, what does this have to do with the virgin birth? What does this have to do with the Virgin Mary? Simple. Because this is the foundations of the belief system that Mary was a virgin, and you see the same attributes given to the different goddesses, Isis, Astarte, Asheroth, like we just read in the scriptures, as Mary. Okay, I'm gonna get more into it. If it don't make sense yet, let's keep going. It says in this article here, a culture trip, it says Easter may have started out as a sex ritual, and here's why. So you have these women here, more than likely silly women laden with iniquity. They look like pagans. Okay, this website kind of bugging out, man. It says, perhaps you never stopped to think about what eggs and the Easter bunny have to do with each other. After all, rabbits don't even lay eggs. It's a bit bizarre, isn't it? Decorating eggs, passing them out as gifts, hunting for them, paying homage to a mysterious rabbit. What does any of it have to do with the resurrection of Jesus Christ? That's a good question. Hey man, this website kind of tripping. The short answer is nothing. It all goes back to an ancient pagan tradition. Easter first started out as a celebration of the spring equinox, a time when all of nature is awakened from the slumber of winter and the cycle of renewal begins. Anglo-Saxon pagans celebrated this time of rebirth by invoking Astarte or Astata, the goddess of spring, the dawn, and fertility. Particularly in ancient times, fertility was of singular importance to ensure the survival of a species or a group of people. Okay, let's get some more. Man, this website tripping, yo. Okay, it says, what does all this have to do with eggs, the Easter bunny, and Christ's resurrection from the dead? For that answer, we have to look at how Christianity spread across the world and subsumed pagan rituals. What I've been saying this whole time. Christianity slowly began its transition as the popular religion in Rome and thus around the world. You see, that's how it became implemented under the Emperor Constantine I, 306 to 337 AD. Constantine converted from paganism to Christianity, at least that's what's alleged here, but he really didn't, in 312 AD, and finally brought an end to the persecution of the Christians. Before that time, the majority of Romans were pagan and held fast to their old traditions, teachings, and rituals. Constantine the Great, as well as the Roman leaders after him, knew it would be a challenge to get everyone to convert to Christianity overnight. So this was done for everybody, man, to put everybody in the same thing, make everybody happy. Okay, those that thought they believed in the scriptures, they can get something. Those that were pagans, they can get something too. Okay, that's why they combine them two together. in the name of Rome, not in the name of the Lord. Okay. All right. It says instead of eliminating the spring equinox pagan celebrations altogether, Roman rulers slowly converted them into Christian rituals. Christianity's rapid spread across the Western world eventually enveloped ancient Celtic pagan traditions too, including the rituals of Astarte or Easter. By 391 AD, the worship of any gods outside of the God of Abraham was made illegal in Rome. Okay, that's just what they claim. All right. Jesus' rebirth took the place symbolically of nature's rebirth during the spring season. The celebration of fertility and fecundity was replaced with the subtle, innocuous symbol of the egg, and the hare became the Easter bunny because, well, rabbits produce quickly and in large numbers. Ever heard of the term "they F like rabbits"? Oh, and take a wild guess at a Star's sacred animal symbol. That's right, it's the hare. So what this person is trying to get you to see is that, okay, let's see. So in the eggshell, the ancient Christians kind of stole the pagan celebration of Astarte and the spring equinox. By adapting these ancient rituals into the Christian tradition, the story of Christ's resurrection became embedded in the cultural consciousness through storytelling and symbolism. So that's why I went into this, because this is why you have the Virgin Mary even being a thing. Because we see that quote unquote Christianity, whether you're a Catholic or not of a different denomination, is all started with a pagan Roman emperor. Okay, that was not going by the scriptures. That's why every time you see something, he did this for Rome. He was doing it for this, but they ain't say they opened up the word of the Lord and got the understanding thereof. Okay, now let's go into more of the titles of Mary. Now the next one I want to talk about is the Queen of Heaven. The Queen of Heaven right here. Let's see. With this, why was Mary given the title of the Queen of Heaven? All right, it says, Israel, my glory, right here, the Queen of Heaven. It says, God pronounced severe judgment on the people of Judah and Jerusalem because they worship the quote unquote Queen of Heaven. It says Jeremiah chapter 7, 17 through 20, chapter 44, verse 15 through 19. Who or what was the Queen of Heaven? And how did the people of Israel get involved in worship of her? Keep in mind that in the Catholic Church mainly, but in other denominations probably as well, you have Mary called the Queen of Heaven. Why is she given that title? It says as early as the 25th century BC, people of Ur of the Chaldees in Samaria worshipped a mother goddess named Ishtar. So 2,500 years before Yahushua or Christ was born, you have the Sumerians or the Chaldees, the people of Ur, the Chaldees in Samaria, worshipped Ishtar. Okay, around the same time, the Minoans of Crete had a mother goddess portrayed with quote unquote her divine child Valkynus in her arms. Later, the people of Cyprus revered a goddess who appeared to have patterned after the Sumerian Ishtar, and later adopted by the Greeks as Aphrodite or Astarte. The Babylonians, who conquered Samaria about the 22nd century BC, related their religious beliefs to the heavenly bodies, as many people have throughout the annals of history. They regarded the planets as gods and goddesses and equated the planet Venus with the Sumerian mother goddess Ishtar. Now here's the point. The Babylonians worshipped Ishtar as the Virgin. So back in 2500 BC, and even before then, like 4000 BC, so 4,000 years before Christ was born, you had the Virgin, the Holy Virgin, the Virgin Mother, the Goddess of Goddesses, and what else? The Queen of Heaven and Earth. They exclaim, Ishtar is great. Ishtar is queen. My lady is exalted. My lady is queen. There is none like unto her. So why is that? Why is the Virgin Mary, as it's called? Let me get titles of Mary again. Where I'm at. Yeah, why is she called the Queen of Heaven? The Blessed Mother, the Virgin Mary, the same titles that was given into Ishtar, Astarte, Isis. Right? Why are these same titles given unto Virgin Mary? Why are these same titles given to the Virgin Mary, man? Okay? Why? These are the questions that you need to ask. Okay? Same thing here. The Queen of Heaven was a title, and this is an article here, essentially. Let's see what it says. The Queen of Heaven, Cradle of Civilization. It says, Queen of Heaven was a title given to the number of ancient sky goddesses in the ancient Mediterranean and Near East, in particular Anat, Isis, Inanna, Astarte, Hera, we're going to talk about Hera later, and possibly Asherah by the prophet Jeremiah. Elsewhere, Nordic Frigg, where you get the word Friday from, Frigga, also bore this title. But why is it that Mary is given this title too? And look, it says it. In Greek Roman times, Hera and her Roman aspect Juno bore this title of Queen of Heaven. Forms of and content of worship varied. In modern times, the title Queen of Heaven is used by Catholics and Orthodox Christians for Mary. So you have goddesses that have been in worship or been worshipped for thousands of years before Mary was born, but they're still given the same titles as Mary, or Mary's given the same titles as them. Now, why is that? Got another resource here, The Story of Civilization, Our Oriental Heritage by Will Durant. Basically talks about Ishtar as well. I don't think I have to get all of this pretty much. Okay, I'm back. So it says here that Ishtar, Astarte to the Greeks, Asherah to the Jews. Look, it says that she was represented sometimes as a bearded bisexual deity. I wonder why, you have transgenderism, so much on the rise now. I wonder why you have transgenderism so much on the rise now. Sometimes as a nude female offering her breasts to suck, and though her worshippers repeatedly address her as the Virgin, the Holy Virgin, the Virgin Mother. Okay? The Lady of Ladies, the Goddess of Goddesses, Ishtar, Queen of all cities, leader of all men. Leader of all men. Now you wonder why you have this doctrine, being taught to our men right now that, women are their leaders. Okay? There's a reason for that.